She appears flawless, captivating, astute, and exceptionally compassionate. She genuinely listens to your troubles, offers insightful guidance, and makes you feel profoundly understood in ways you've never encountered. Her friends and family adore her. She embodies everything you envisioned in a partner. Then, 6 months pass, and you find yourself seated in your vehicle outside your own residence, apprehensive about entering. Your own recollections, judgment, and sanity have come into question. You are plagued by persistent guilt over actions you cannot recall committing. The emotional minefields that spring up without warning have left you utterly drained. You've become a stranger to yourself, bewildered by how this transformation occurred. You've encountered what mental health professionals term the shadow, a hidden darkness that certain individuals carry like an invisible contagion, spreading their unresolved psychological toxicity to everyone around them. These women are not overtly menacing. Their dysfunction isn't signaled by glaring indicators. They operate discreetly, employing unseen tactics to wage battles you never knew were being fought. Today, I aim to unveil the 6 classifications of psychologically perilous women who dismantle men not through blatant cruelty, but via subtle psychological maneuvering that turns your own mind against you. The most formidable predators are those you willingly invite into your life, believing they are your saviors. The most destructive women in your life will not be the ones who shout, strike, or mistreat you overtly. They will be the ones who project an image of care, sensitivity, and deep emotion, all while systematically transferring their psychological burdens onto you. They will make you believe you are aiding their healing journey, when in reality, they are making you unwell. This transference occurs through imperceptible channels. You begin accepting accountability for emotions you did not generate, resolving predicaments you did not create, and managing reactions that rightfully belong to someone else's unaddressed trauma. Unbeknownst to you, you become a vessel for their mental detritus. This process masquerades as profound intimacy. She divulges her deepest anxieties, her childhood hurts, and her emotional struggles with such apparent openness that you feel privileged to be privy to such personal revelations. What you fail to grasp is that her sharing is not for genuine connection. It is a download for her own solace. Each download transfers a fragment of her emotional weight onto your shoulders. You begin shouldering her anxieties, absorbing her despondency, navigating her triggers, and structuring your existence around her volatility. Gradually, her internal turmoil becomes your lived reality. The most alarming aspect is how this renders you complicit in your own subjugation. You perceive yourself as being supportive, while in fact, you are enabling her to shirk responsibility for her own recovery. You develop an addiction to feeling indispensable, while she cultivates a reliance on being rescued. Psychologically dangerous women operate through relentless projection, an unconscious process where they offload their unacknowledged traits onto you, and then react to you as if you embody those very characteristics. This constructs a psychological framework where you are never truly interacting with the genuine you, but rather with her distorted interpretation of your identity. When she accuses you of selfishness, she is projecting her own unacknowledged self-interest. When she claims you are emotionally distant, she is projecting her own emotional barriers onto you. When she insists you are attempting to control her, she is deflecting from her own controlling tendencies. This projection matrix is exceptionally detrimental because it renders genuine communication impossible. You aren't discussing actual issues. You are perpetually defending yourself against accusations that bear no resemblance to your reality. Every discourse devolves into a debate about your character rather than your actions. This ceaseless defense against spurious accusations progressively erodes your sense of self. You begin to doubt your perceptions, question your character, and shoulder responsibility for problems originating within her psyche, not your conduct. The matrix becomes self-perpetuating, as your attempts to defend yourself are interpreted as proof of the very trait she is projecting. Your frustration at being misunderstood becomes evidence of your anger management issues. Your exhaustion from constant defense is taken as proof of your emotional withdrawal. The most sophisticated form of psychological manipulation involves presenting oneself as a victim while acting as a predator. These women have perfected the art of garnering sympathy and support, which they then leverage to control and manipulate those around them. The victim persona is meticulously crafted to awaken your protective instincts. She recounts tales of past traumas, present hardships, and ongoing victimization, compelling you to rescue, shield, and defend her. Your innate masculine drive to provide security becomes the very tether that ensnares you in her psychological web. However, this victim portrayal is strategic, not genuine. While she may have experienced actual suffering, she weaponizes that trauma to evade accountability for her present conduct. Every criticism is reframed as persecution. Every boundary is recast as abandonment. Every demand for accountability is reinterpreted as further victimization. This transformation occurs gradually as you invest more deeply in her well-being. The woman who appeared so fragile and in need of protection reveals herself to be remarkably adept at psychological warfare. The victim becomes the accuser.
The injured party transforms into the aggressor. The helpless individual assumes the role of the manipulator. This reversal is disorienting because it contradicts your entire understanding of the relationship's dynamics. The person you have been endeavoring to save begins to treat you as the source of the problem. The victim you have been protecting starts to assail you as the perpetrator. Some women function as emotional parasites, subsisting on the psychological energy of others while offering nothing substantial to the relationship, beyond their insatiable need. These women do not seek partnership. They desire hosts, capable of sustaining their emotional dysfunctions indefinitely. The emotional parasite presents as someone desperately in need of love, understanding, and support, due to a tragic past or challenging circumstances. She positions herself as someone who would be remarkable if only she could surmount her emotional scars, achieve her ambitions, or overcome her obstacles. This presentation ignites your rescuer complex, leading you to believe that your affection, support, and devotion can transform her into her true potential. You expend immense energy attempting to mend someone who has no intention of improving. Their betterment would, in fact, terminate the parasitic relationship upon which they depend. The parasitic dynamic breeds a cruel irony, where your efforts to assist her actually perpetuate her dysfunction. Each instance where you shield her from consequences, resolve her issues, or provide emotional regulation that she ought to manage herself, you reinforce her dependency while depleting your own psychological resources. The parasite is never sated because the hunger is not truly for the specific assistance you provide. It stems from a power dynamic where she controls your energy by appearing to require it. No amount of giving can ever satisfy someone whose genuine addiction is to receiving.
If you are beginning to recognize patterns in your own relationships that mirror these psychological manipulation tactics, be sure to subscribe and activate the notification bell. What I am revealing today about covert psychological abuse could spare you years of bewilderment and help you identify hazardous dynamics before they devastate your mental well-being. The mass controller maintains a pristine public image while exhibiting a starkly contrasting private demeanor. To the outside world, she appears kind, considerate, and emotionally mature. Yet in private, she displays controlling, critical, and manipulative behaviors. This dual nature induces profound psychological confusion, causing you to question your own perception of reality. The woman whom everyone else regards as wonderful is the very individual who renders your private life a misery through incessant criticism, emotional manipulation, and psychological control. The mass controller wields her public persona as a weapon against you. When you attempt to address her private conduct, she can readily cite numerous individuals who perceive her as exceptional. Your complaints about her treatment seem unreasonable when juxtaposed with her reputation for kindness and consideration. This dynamic creates psychological isolation because no one else witnesses the behavior you endure. Friends and family consider you fortunate to be partnered with such a remarkable woman, making it impossible to seek support for dealing with her private manipulation and control. The mass controller also exploits her public image to manipulate your behavior. She expects you to uphold the illusion of her perfection by refraining from discussing her private actions, never displaying frustration with her treatment, and always presenting as the contented couple she requires for her image management. Some women unconsciously generate chaos and drama as a means of managing their own psychological instability. They find calm, peaceful environments intolerable because their internal turmoil demands external expression. Being in their proximity means existing in a perpetual state of manufactured crisis.
The chaos generator orchestrates issues that demand your immediate attention and emotional investment. She fabricates emergencies, escalates minor disputes into major conflicts, and ensures there is always some drama requiring your involvement and energy. This pattern serves several psychological functions for her. It keeps you too preoccupied with immediate problems to discern larger patterns in her behavior. It positions her as perpetually needing your assistance and support. It generates an intensity that she mistakes for intimacy. The chaos also acts as a defense mechanism against genuine emotional connection. By maintaining relationships in a crisis mode, she avoids the vulnerability inherent in authentic intimacy. Drama becomes a substitute for depth. Intensity supplants genuine connection. Living with a chaos generator is psychologically exhausting because there is never any respite. There is always another crisis to manage, another emergency to resolve, another disaster to avert. Your nervous system remains in a constant state of activation, leading to chronic stress and eventual burnout. The boundary violator systematically tests, pushes, and breaches your personal boundaries, while simultaneously making you feel culpable for possessing boundaries in the first place. She operates on the premise that love equates to unrestricted access to your time, energy, space, and emotional resources. Boundary infringements commence subtly and escalate incrementally. She might arrive unannounced, scrutinize your phone, make plans without your input, or divulge private information to others. Each violation is presented as proof of her affection and investment in the relationship. When you attempt to establish or uphold boundaries, she responds with hurt, anger, or accusations of not truly loving her. She reframes your need for personal space as rejection, your desire for privacy as deception, and your request for respect as evidence of emotional distance. The boundary violator employs emotional manipulation to make you complicit in the erosion of your own boundaries. She makes you feel selfish for wanting personal time, controlling for wishing to make your own decisions, and distant for not immediately sharing every thought and feeling. Over time, boundary violations fundamentally reshape your life around her needs and preferences. You sever ties with friends she dislikes, abandon activities she deems threatening, and alter your behavior to avoid triggering her fears of abandonment. The gaslighter systematically undermines your perception of reality by denying events that transpired, rewriting history to align with her narrative, and causing you to doubt your own memory and judgment. This psychological manipulation is engineered to foster dependence on her interpretation of reality. Gaslighting operates through consistent denial of your lived experience. When you recall her uttering something hurtful, she insists she never did. When you remember her performing a damaging act, she claims it occurred differently. When you highlight patterns in her behavior, she acts
as if you are fabricating. The gaslighter also utilizes selective memory to bolster her narratives. She remembers every misstep you have ever made, while conveniently forgetting her own harmful actions. She recounts your worst moments in meticulous detail, yet experiences convenient amnesia regarding her problematic conduct. This systematic distortion of reality gradually erodes your confidence in your own perceptions. You begin to second-guess your memory, question your judgment, and accept her version of events even when it directly contradicts your experiences.
The gaslighter often presents herself as the rational individual, endeavoring to help you accurately comprehend reality. She frames her distortion of reality as concern for your well-being, fostering a sense of gratitude for her patience with your seemingly flawed perceptions. The emotional terrorist leverages your emotional investment in the relationship as a means of controlling your behavior through threats of emotional devastation. She holds the relationship hostage to ensure compliance with her demands and preferences. Emotional terrorism operates by cultivating fear of emotional repercussions. She threatens to depart if you fail to meet her demands. She threatens self-harm if you establish boundaries. She threatens to ruin your reputation if you challenge her behavior. These threats do not need to be explicit to be effective. She might simply withdraw affection, create dramatic scenes, or fabricate crises whenever you act independently. The underlying message becomes clear: comply or face emotional warfare. The emotional terrorist also exploits your concern for her well-being against you. She makes you accountable for her emotional state, her mental health, and her overall happiness. Any action that displeases her is construed as an assault on her psychological stability. This emotional hostage-taking creates a relationship dynamic where you are perpetually managing her emotions, rather than expressing your own needs. You become responsible for maintaining her equilibrium while receiving no stability in return. The identity thief gradually supplants your authentic self with a version that caters to her psychological needs. She systematically eradicates aspects of your personality, interests, and relationships that do not align with her preferences or insecurities. Identity theft occurs through subtle discouragement of activities, friendships, and interests she finds threatening. She expresses hurt when you spend time with certain friends, displays disapproval of hobbies she does not comprehend, and generates drama around activities that divert attention from her. The identity thief also shapes your personality through selective reinforcement. She rewards behaviors that serve her needs, while penalizing authentic expressions that make her uncomfortable. Gradually, you learn to modify yourself to avoid triggering her negative reactions. This process is particularly insidious because it unfolds incrementally and feels like natural relationship adaptation. You do not perceive yourself as losing yourself because the changes occur incrementally over time. The identity thief often rationalizes this process as assisting you in becoming a better version of yourself. She presents her demands for change as love-motivated improvement rather than manipulative control, designed to serve her psychological needs. The recovery prevention agent
unconsciously sabotages your efforts at personal growth, healing, and positive transformation. Because your improvement threatens the psychological dynamic upon which she depends. She needs you to remain psychologically compromised to maintain her sense of superiority and control. Recovery prevention manifests through subtle discouragement of therapy, personal development, and positive changes. She concocts reasons why self-improvement is selfish, unnecessary, or detrimental to the relationship. She engineers crises that disrupt your healing activities. The prevention agent also undermines your progress by triggering old patterns and behaviors whenever you begin making positive strides. She knows precisely which buttons to push to revert you to previous dysfunctions that she finds more manageable. This sabotage is particularly cruel because it targets your attempts to become healthier and more functional.
The individual who professes love actively works to keep you ensnared in patterns that benefit her rather than supporting your growth. The recovery prevention agent often frames her sabotage as protecting the relationship from change. She makes you feel guilty for transcending the dynamic that initially brought you together, even when that dynamic was unhealthy. Most men overlook the early indicators of psychological danger because they are searching for obvious red flags, instead of subtle disruptions in patterns. The most dangerous women do not announce their toxicity. They slowly normalize aberrant behavior until your reality becomes completely distorted. The initial warning sign is the accelerated pace of intimacy. Psychologically dangerous women often push for deep emotional connection, exclusive commitment, or significant life decisions much faster than healthy relationships naturally evolve. This is not passion. It is psychological urgency driven by their need to secure a host before you can thoroughly assess their character. Another critical warning sign is the pattern of isolation. She gradually creates distance between you and your support networks through subtle criticism of your friends, family, and activities. She does not directly forbid these connections. Rather, she makes them emotionally costly through hurt feelings, manufactured crises, or passive-aggressive responses whenever you invest time elsewhere. The third warning sign is reality negotiation. The subtle yet persistent attempts to alter your perception of events, conversations, and behaviors. Initially, she does not gaslight aggressively. She merely offers alternative interpretations that favor her narrative, while causing you to question your initial reactions. Observe emotional fluctuations that do not correlate with situational triggers. If she exhibits extreme emotional responses to minor incidents, or entirely disproportionate emotional reactions to significant situations, you are witnessing evidence of internal psychological chaos that will eventually become your external reality. Understanding how psychological toxicity spreads from dangerous women to their partners necessitates recognizing that emotional states are contagious through mirror neuron activation and unconscious behavioral mimicry. You literally begin to adopt her emotional patterns without conscious awareness. The infection commences with emotional attunement that feels like profound connection. You begin synchronizing with her emotional rhythms, matching her energy levels, and responding to her psychological states as if they were your own. This attunement creates an illusion of intimacy while actually establishing psychological dominance. As the infection progresses, you begin internalizing her emotional lexicon. Her methods of interpreting events, assigning meaning to behaviors, and categorizing experiences become your default frameworks. You start viewing the world through her psychological filters, rather than maintaining your own perspective. The final stage involves complete psychological integration, where her emotional patterns become indistinguishable from your own. It's impossible to distinguish where her psychological sway ends and your genuine reactions begin. You've been psychologically subjugated while believing you were fostering a real emotional connection. This insidious infiltration is particularly perilous because it masquerades as personal development and deepening affection. You perceive the psychological shifts as an enhancement of your sensitivity, emotional perceptiveness, and overall connection. In reality, you are becoming more psychologically reliant and less authentically yourself. Women who are psychologically hazardous excel at forging trauma bonds. These are emotional affiliations that arise from cycles of intense distress, followed by periods of relief, establishing addictive emotional patterns that are exceedingly difficult to sever, even when the relationship is demonstrably detrimental. Trauma bonding commences with the deliberate creation of artificial peaks and valleys within the relationship's dynamic. She orchestrates crises that induce significant stress, then intervenes to alleviate that stress, leading you to feel grateful for a return to normalcy, rather than questioning the original source of the distress. The bond is solidified through intermittent reinforcement, where positive affirmations become unpredictable rewards that you diligently strive to attain. The uncertainty surrounding when you will experience affection, approval, or emotional connection cultivates a psychological dependence akin to the compulsion experienced in gambling. Trauma bonds also develop through shared intense experiences that feel like unique connections, but are in fact manufactured drama designed to foster psychological dependency. You begin to believe that the magnitude of your emotional responses signifies the depth of your connection, rather than recognizing it as evidence of psychological manipulation. The deception is complete when you start equating the trauma bond with genuine love. The intensity of your emotional attachment, the difficulty in envisioning life without her, and the apprehension of losing the connection all feel like validations of profound love, rather than indicators of psychological addiction. Dissolving trauma bonds necessitates understanding that intensity is not synonymous with intimacy, that emotional addiction is not love, and that fear of loss does not equate
to inherent value. Authentic love cultivates security and facilitates growth, not anxiety and dependence. Women who pose a danger often weaponize social validation to legitimize their actions and dismiss your concerns. They surround themselves with individuals who echo their narrative while isolating you from anyone who might offer alternative viewpoints on the relationship's dynamics. The weaponization of social proof begins with carefully curated social circles that align with her worldview and champion her victim narratives. These associates provide unwavering affirmation for her perspective while treating your concerns as reflections of your inadequacies rather than legitimate relationship issues. She also strategically employs social media to construct public narratives about your relationship that diverge from your private reality. The perfectly staged couple photographs, affectionate posts about your partnership, and public displays of endearment create societal pressure to uphold the facade rather than confront the underlying truth. This weapon becomes particularly potent when she enlists your own friends and family to her side through calculated impression management and calculated dissemination of information. She presents herself as the reasonable, compassionate partner, while subtly casting you as difficult, irrational, or emotionally unstable. This manipulation of social proof renders it nearly impossible to obtain unbiased feedback about the relationship, because everyone in your social sphere has been influenced by her meticulously crafted narrative. Your reality becomes increasingly isolated, while her version garners widespread social endorsement. Many psychologically hazardous women engineer financial dependencies and entanglements that render departure from the relationship economically burdensome, thereby erecting practical impediments to the psychological barriers they have already established. Financial entanglement often initiates with seemingly innocuous shared expenses, joint accounts, or interdependence that appears to be a natural progression of a relationship. However, these arrangements gradually morph in ways that escalate your financial liabilities while diminishing your financial autonomy. She may encourage you to assume shared debts for her benefit, co-sign obligations that primarily serve her interests, or make financial decisions that augment your responsibility for her well-being. Each financial entanglement makes exiting the relationship more intricate and costly. The strategy also encompasses fostering lifestyle inflation that necessitates your income for its upkeep. She promotes spending habits, living arrangements, or financial commitments that strain your resources while ensuring her comfort, thereby creating financial pressure that keeps you ensnared even when the relationship becomes unbearable. Financial manipulation can also involve undermining your career advancement, discouraging opportunities for income enhancement, or generating crises that disrupt your professional development. This ensures your continued financial reliance while curtailing your options for economic self-sufficiency. When you begin to recognize the psychological harm and attempt to recuperate from toxic relationship patterns, dangerously inclined women frequently intensify their manipulative tactics to thwart your recovery and maintain psychological dominion. Recovery sabotage commences with minimizing your concerns and reframing your healing endeavors as assaults on the relationship. Your inclination towards therapy is misconstrued as selfishness. Your need for personal space is depicted as abandonment. And your efforts to establish boundaries are presented as proof of your unwillingness to work on the relationship. The sabotage escalates through manufactured crises designed to disrupt your healing activities. She engineers emergencies that demand your immediate attention whenever you have scheduled therapy, self-care activities, or time with supportive friends who might encourage your continued growth. She also appropriates your own healing vernacular against you, adopting therapeutic terminology to rationalize your behavior while evading accountability for her own. Your attempts at healthy communication are construed as evidence of your emotional manipulation, while her manipulations are recontextualized as justifiable reactions to your conduct. The most sophisticated sabotage involves feigning support for your healing, while subtly undermining it. She might advocate for therapy while selecting practitioners who align with her viewpoint. Support your boundaries while consistently disregarding them, or express a desire for change while derailing every effort toward genuine relationship improvement. The fundamental reality concerning psychologically perilous women is that they operate beneath the threshold of conscious awareness, leveraging your inherent positive attributes against you. Your inclination to assist becomes the very mechanism for your psychological undoing. Your capacity for love becomes the vulnerability they exploit. These women are not necessarily inherently wicked or intentionally malevolent. They are psychologically unaware, operating from unaddressed wounds and unintegrated inner conflicts that seek external targets for their internal turmoil. They genuinely fail to comprehend the damage they inflict due to a deficiency in self-awareness to recognize their own psychological patterns. The peril lies in their unconsciousness combined with your consciousness. Your awareness and empathy render you susceptible to their projections and manipulations. Your desire to understand and assist makes you an ideal host for their psychological parasitism. Protection necessitates cultivating the capacity to swiftly identify these patterns and respond appropriately. This implies trusting your emotional responses when relationships feel depleting, chaotic, or disorienting. It means upholding boundaries, even when boundary setting is portrayed as unloving. Most crucially, protection requires understanding that you cannot mend someone who lacks the desire to be healed. You cannot love someone into psychological wellness. You cannot sacrifice yourself to rescue someone determined to remain unconscious. The women worth investing in are those who embrace accountability for their own psychological well-being, who engage in their own emotional labor, and who introduce consciousness rather than chaos into relationships. They enrich your existence rather than consuming it, bolster your growth rather than undermining it, and contribute to the relationship rather than solely extracting from it. Healthy women do not demand that you relinquish yourself to love them. They do not require you to diminish yourself psychologically so they may feel larger. They do not drain your vitality to fuel their dysfunction or employ your empathy as a weapon against your well-being. The path to protection involves developing the discernment between authentic vulnerability and manipulative victimhood, between genuine emotional needs and parasitic emotional demands, between true intimacy and psychological intrusion. It demands trust in your instincts, even when those instincts conflict with someone's carefully constructed persona. If this analysis of covert psychological manipulation has aided you in identifying hazardous patterns within your own relationships, subscribe to this channel for further insights into safeguarding your mental health from individuals who present as helpers while inadvertently acting as harms. Activate that notification bell, as comprehending these dynamics could spare you years of psychological damage disguised as affection. Share this video with any man who needs to grasp that the most perilous women are often those who appear the most solicitous, because genuine care constructs you rather than dismantling you from within.